Hi, I'm Pia Silvani, Director of Training and Behavior at St. Hubert's Animal Welfare Center in Madison, New Jersey. What we're going to do in this DVD is not only teach you how to get rid of some inappropriate behaviors, but stop them before they start. The goal of this DVD is to help you teach your dog what to do rather than have your dog teach you what to do. When you brought your puppy or your dog into your household, your dog had no understanding of what the rules of the house were or what was expected of him as a dog. This DVD is going to help you teach your dog what your rules are and what your expectations are. The result of that is going to be a happier dog. When you have a happier dog, a well-mannered dog, you're going to be a happier owner, and that's going to enhance the human-animal bond. The key to remember that your dog is a dog. It's not a little person in a fur coat. They're part of your family, and you want to make them a good member of the family as well. Remember, you're two different species speaking two different languages. This DVD is going to help your dog become a better member of the family so you both can enjoy each other and have a wonderful relationship. Let's talk a little bit about rewards now. Rewards are not necessarily just treats. While treats are part of rewards, they're only one of 5 that I use in training. There are 5 different rewards that you can use in training: food, play, petting, praise, and real-life rewards, like going outside. So let's discuss a little bit about how to use treats in training. Number 1, while this is a great treat for your dog, this is far too large if you're going to go through the teaching process, for example, of teaching sit. Secondly, this is a hard, crunchy treat. This is very good for the dog's teeth to get rid of tartar, but if I break it apart, as you can see, it's very difficult to break apart, and it's starting to crumble as well. If I'm trying to get my dog's focus and attention and the treat is crumbling and I have crumbles on the floor of the treat, the dog is going to be focused on the floor, licking up the treats. So instead of something hard as that, you want to try to get something at your local pet store that is soft and chewy, something that goes down quick and easy, palatable, something your dog likes. You're going to have to do your own individual treat test because not every dog likes every treat. As you can see with this particular treat, I can break it into tiny, tiny little pieces. So if I'm teaching my dog to sit, right now I can get probably 8 sits from this one tiny treat. Less calories also. That would be number 1. And they come in all flavors. For example, here's a salmon treat that many dogs like. Now, another option that you have are these tiny, tiny little treats for toy dogs or young pups. You want to give the tiniest of treats so they don't get too full and you can get more training in and they don't put weight on as well. At home, where there are not many distractions, my recommendation is to use your dog's kibble. Kibble is a wonderful treat. Most dogs enjoy their kibble. But this is not going to work very well if you take your dog out to a very distracting area. There's no need to give your dog extra food. If you feed your dog a cup of food in the morning, rather than give it to him free in the bowl, instead put a half a cup of food in the dog's bowl, save the other half a cup, and then what you can do is get a little treat pouch, put the kibble into the treat pouch. You can attach it to a belt or a belt loop, and at that particular time, what you can do is now you're ready to train your dog. So if I'm going to ask my dog to sit or lie down, I'm going to reinforce that. I've got my kibble ready. Now, another option, people are a little bit worried about using what we like to call human food, such as cheese or liver or chicken or beef. Not to worry about it, but I always recommend that you talk to your veterinarian before you offer any human food. People's main concern, however, is that the dog is going to now steal from counters if they give human food to the dog. While I cut this up into tiny little pieces, if you notice Lance is lying down there, he's not jumping up onto the counters to take food. And now what I can do is I can reinforce Lance for maintaining nice, calm, passive behavior while he's lying down and not jumping up onto the counters attempting to take food. Rule number 1, do not feed your dog from the table while you're eating. If you're doing that, you're actually training your dog that it's fine to eat from the table, and he's going to be much more apt to beg. If, for example, you've been feeding your dog from the table and you get up, you walk to your refrigerator to get a bottle of ketchup, don't expect your hamburger to be there when you return. Rule number 2, after you're done eating and you may have some leftovers, my recommendation is not to go over with your plate and scrape the food into your dog's food bowl. He knows the food came from the table. He was just watching you eating. And rule number 3, when your dog is young, I can feed Lance from the counter at this particular time because he doesn't take food from counters. But with a young dog that's learning, my recommendation is also not to feed it from counters. So if you're cooking and chopping food, don't throw him a couple pieces of food at the same time. Now, why not feed the dog from the table? If you're feeding your dog from the table, your dog is obviously going to be motivated to sit by the table and start begging. If you're going to use food in training, such as cheese, liver, leftover meat, or chicken, my recommendation is that you discuss it with your veterinarian first, just in case your dog has any allergies. I'd like to talk about rewards. Rewards are not necessarily just treats, but you can use play as a reward as well. Every dog likes to play different games. I have some examples right here of some toys that you can use as a reward for your dog. For example, this is a rope toy. Many people leave these around the house for the dog to chew on. I use it as a wonderful fetch toy or something I can tug with. Another toy that you can use is a donkey tail or a snake. These are fun for dogs of all ages, since you can use it on the ground so the puppy or the dog chases it, as well as a tug toy. Again, my recommendation is don't leave this around so your puppy or dog can chew on it. Save it as a reward. A ball also is a wonderful means of rewarding. So many people go out and play ball with their dog, but they never ask their dog to do anything. So the dog is actually playing on his own. Instead, my recommendation would be work on sits. Tell your dog to down, tell him to stay, and as a reward, toss the ball for him. Lance's favorite toy is a Frisbee, and they come in different sizes. Okay, the nice thing about these Frisbees, he likes the soft Frisbee, is I can fold it up. I can stick it into my pocket, and now I have a reward ready and available for me. So if I call him to come, if he's going to be chasing a deer, I've got a reward for him in return. Another type of reward is petting and touch. Again, too many people give it away for free. Many dogs come over to their owners, they nudge their arm for petting. I like to save petting when the dog is doing something nice. Touch is a wonderful reward for dogs. The next type of reward that you can give is praise. Praise doesn't necessarily mean touch. Praise is verbal. If I tell him that he's a good boy, that's praise. For example, he's lying here still. I can tell him, Lance, good boy. If you notice the little twitch in his ears, he was listening. Okay? I can also use it if I'm going to reinforce good behavior in a different tone. The last type of reward that people seem to forget about or don't use as a reward are real life rewards. Some examples might be, I ask my dog to sit and wait before I open up the door. Freedom is the real life reward.
Okay.
Another reward you can use is sniffing. For example, if the dog is walking nicely on leash and he's paying attention, I can tell him to go sniff and use that as a reward. Greeting people, that's a real life reward as well. So if your dog sits politely for greeting, the reward will then be a greeting from a stranger. Good boy. Yes, very nice. Good boy. As you can see throughout this DVD, we've used lots of treats in training. Don't forget, rewards are not just treats. They are toys, play, real life, and anything your dog likes. What I'm going to do now is teach you how to wean your dog off of treats in the training process. If you recall, when I worked with Lance or even Abby, we had no treats present because they were aware of exactly what was expected of them. Their reward was real life rewards. But initially when we teach our dogs, whether they be a puppy or a dog from a rescue, they need to be motivated to learn how to do certain behaviors through treats. So I have a treat in my hand. I'm going to teach Gwynnie how to lie down now. I bring the food to the ground. Yes. The second she's on the ground, I put a treat between her paws and then I'll release her. Okay. Very good. Do it a few times. Good girl. Yes. The treat is on the floor and I release her. Okay. Very nice. And once she's offering me the behavior consistently, I can put the verbal cue on. Gwynnie, down. Yes. Okay. And release her so she gets up in between. I still have the treat. Gwynnie, down. Yes. The treat goes on the floor between the paws and release. Okay. Now I'm going to ask her to lie down without the food in my hand. Gwynnie, down. Notice no food in hand, but I will still reward her because she's learning this. Okay, good girl. No food in hand. Gwynnie, down. Yes. I'll give her a little reward for my other hand. Now she's just used to watching my hand go down with no food. Gwynnie, okay. Okay. Okay, good. Now let's see if I can get it now, if I can stand a little bit higher. Gwynnie, down. Yes. No food in my hand again. Very nice. If I want her to hold the down position for a little bit longer, I'm just going to delay giving her treats in between praising her. Good girl, Gwynnie. Very good. Periodically give a reward. I'll extend those delays longer and longer. And basically what I'm doing is teaching her stay. Okay. Very nice. Good girl. Gwynnie, down. As you can see, she's a little distracted now, so I'll just lower my hand again. Yes. And reward. What I'm going to do with her eventually is remove the food completely. She loves to retrieve already. So what I will do is I will tell her to lie down before I throw the ball. I will tell her to lie down before I put her food bowl down. So now I can start to reward her with real life rewards. Let's talk a little bit about crate training. Crates are a wonderful tool to help your dog become house trained. What we do is we slowly acclimate the dog to the crate. You don't want to automatically put your dog into a crate and leave your dog there for long periods of time. It's going to stress them out. So what I initially do when I acclimate the dog to a crate, whether that be an adult dog or a puppy, I associate it with a positive thing, such as a treat. I also like to give it a name, such as Go Home. Go Home is fun, rather than go into your crate or kennel up, as some people do. So I think Go Home is fun. So what I'm going to do with Abby right now is I'm going to throw a piece of treat inside the crate as I associate it with that phrase. Abby, go home. Yes, good girl. Okay, you can come out now. And we try this several times. Abby, go home. Yes, good girl. Okay. You can come out now. And I like to release them with an okay so they know when it's time to come out so they don't bolt out. Many times I put my crate in the car for safety. Just like you wouldn't put a child in the car loose, we like to strap them in the car seat. Crates are a wonderful tool for the car as well. So again, now let's try again without throwing the treat in. Abby, go home. Yes. Okay, she didn't go all the way in, but that's okay to start with. Okay, you can come out now. Once she's used to it, she doesn't seem to be frightened over it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to close the door. Abby, go home. And I'll close the door for a second. Good girl. And I'm going to give her a couple of little treats in the crate. Good girl. Okay. Excellent, excellent, good. If you do this several times a day, the dog is going to be comfortable. If you notice, what I've done is I've put a nice little soft cushy padding here for Abby. Abby is 3 and she loves her crate. She still does to this day. So you can have it nice and soft. For a small puppy, which I'll show you next, I wouldn't put something in here because they can eat it. You don't want to put anything inside the crate for a young puppy that they can consume. So again, Abby, go home. Yes, good girl. Okay, now what I'll do is I'll close the crate door, and then maybe I'll give her a couple of treats. You can give her one from the top. Good girl. Again, good association, and you can sit quietly so the dog realizes that this is a nice, calm place to be. I might also give her something to chew on so she can relax as well. Abby, okay, you can come out. Okay, and some dogs particularly like to have their crates covered, and you can buy these at any pet store. This is a wonderful, lovely little cover that Abby's owners have purchased for her. Looks quite nice. Okay, it has a den-like feel, so there is a cover to it. Many people also like to have this because if they have their crates in their living room, again, the crate is covered. So if I send her in without a food treat this time, Abby, go home. Very good. Okay, now she can relax in her crate, and if I sit at the computer and I want to do some computer work, I want to read a book, she can settle in her crate, periodically rewarding her. What I do not do is I do not let the dog out if the dog starts to bark. But obviously you have to recognize what kind of bark there is. If the dog is tremendously stressed, that you haven't acclimated the dog to the crate appropriately. So take your time with this so this becomes a positive association and your dog will end up loving her crate. And as you can see, Abby does because she is relaxed and is settled. This is Beanie, a 4-month-old Maltese, and Beanie also has a crate. Now, depending on the particular puppy, it depends on what you're going to put in the crate or not put in the crate. With Beanie, Beanie is not a chewer. She doesn't pick things up in her mouth. She doesn't chew things. So I feel quite comfortable putting Beanie in this crate with this nice, comfy, soft cushion for her. So what I'm going to do, actually, she's very comfortable here. I'm going to see if Beanie can go into her crate by herself by telling her to go home, putting a piece of treat in there, and having her go in on her own. Good girl, Beanie. Good girl. Now I'm going to put it a little bit further. I show her that I'm going to guide her in this direction. Show her that the treat's a little bit further back now as she's still chewing because that's probably the size of a steak. Remember we talked about little pieces? You put it way in the back there so she goes all the way in on her own. Good girl. I want her to feel comfortable in there, and right now you can see she's jumping out right away. So to me, in my eyes, she's not truly comfortable to go in completely on her own. So I'll keep working with this, showing her I have a tiny, tiny, tiny little piece. Remember, she's very tiny, so the treats need to be very, very small. Okay? Go home. Good girl. I'm going to then close the crate door, and then I'm going to give her a little treat through the crate. Okay, she is taking it. Oops, she dropped it. Okay, I'll throw it in there, see if she'll take it. Yes, she is. A sign, if your puppy is not taking any food in the crate, that can be a sign of anxiousness. If the puppy is crying and panicked in the crate, I would probably take her out immediately because she's not relaxed in the crate at that particular time. We don't want to automatically put a puppy into a crate when they're very stressed. You want to make it as comfortable as possible. If you notice also, Beanie has a little stuffed toy back here, and we have that in here as a security blanket for her because that can make her feel comfortable. And since she's not a chewer, I feel comfortable leaving that in there. The key is you never want to force a puppy into a crate. If you force a puppy into any type of environment, whatever that is, especially a crate, the association's not going to be good, and the puppy could panic. If your puppy's having diarrhea, very loose stool, obviously I recommend calling your veterinarian first, but it could be that you attempted the crate training too quickly. So that is always a concern of mine. A little bit of crying, a little bit of whining for a puppy is typical, but they should not be hysterical. Now, if Beanie were truly a chewer, I'm going to take her toys out, and I probably would also take this little comfy mat out, and I can teach her to lie on the mat outside the crate, and now I don't have anything on the surface of the crate here. So she's going to be more apt to not relieve herself in the crate because there's nothing in it that can absorb her urine. I might also put in something. You can get a crate divider at any pet supply store, but right now I have found something in our garage that can divide the crate to make it a little bit smaller. So I'm going to put Beanie back in the crate. Again, I'm going to reward her again because she is a puppy for going in there. You can see she's not quite as comfortable with that, but we want to make sure that, okay, she left the treat there. She did eat the treat when she had this comfy bedding. So to me, this is telling me that she's not quite comfortable in this crate with this new box here, so we need some acclimation time. I might also put a little chew toy in there for her so she's got something to chew on, and leave her in for very short periods of time. Especially a puppy this size, they cannot hold their bladder as long as an older puppy. So you need to be very careful not to leave them in there for long periods of time. My recommendation for a tiny puppy this size is really no more than 2 hours. Okay, a 4-month-old puppy, usually 4 hours max. They need to stretch their legs and exercise. We'll open up the crate again. Okay. And Beanie can come out. And I think Beanie's heading towards where is her comfort zone on her little bed. So I would keep her on her bed in the crate. Good. The positive factor of having a crate in the car is that the dog is contained in a safe area so the driver can see where he's driving and not worry about the dog jumping and barking all over the back of the car, which may cause an accident. A dog that's in his crate is safe and he won't be in your way while you're driving. What I like to do with the crate so the dog can't get out, to make sure they are enclosed inside the crate so the dog is safe with driving. One of the main concerns that people have when they bring home a puppy or they adopt a dog from a shelter or other rescue group is making sure that the dog understands exactly where to relieve himself. Now, obviously, we don't want this to happen in the house. One option that you have is to put the dog into a very small room, such as a powder room, along with either wee-wee pads that you can purchase in any pet supply store or newspaper. The first thing we need to do is put paper down so the dog knows exactly where to go. And this is just about enough paper for a small dog. I'm going to put Beanie into this little powder room here so I can feel secure that she's going to be in an area where she can't destroy or she can't soil on carpets. And this is very, very helpful if you live in a high-rise apartment and you have a young puppy, or for tiny, tiny puppies that you get in the middle of the winter, where obviously there could be 3 feet of snow outside. You don't want to lose your puppy in the snow. You may want to consider this option. Every time you think your puppy is going to soil or relieve herself, you would automatically put her on the paper so she's drawn to go to the paper. When the paper is soiled, you want to make sure that you clean up the area and the floor underneath with an enzyme that you can buy at any pet supply store as well. You want to continually bring the puppy to the newspaper every time you think the puppy's going to relieve herself. What she will do at that time, she'll be patterned to go to the newspaper when she needs to relieve herself. When a dog is in the learning stages, she's going to have accidents. Furthermore, I didn't catch her in the act of going. So the puppy cannot connect the punishment with the act of making the mistake. Larger puppies and adult dogs must learn to relieve themselves outdoors. You can use a baby gate elsewhere to create safe spaces to confine your dog. This is Gwynnie here, my 13-week-old Belgian Tervuren puppy. She actually is Lance's daughter. If you choose not to use newspaper or wee-wee pads for house training, another option is the crate. That's a choice that I have made for her, especially since she's going to be a large dog. This is where Gwynnie sleeps at night, and she spends time in her crate when I can't watch her. The premise behind the crate is that your house is safe and your dog is safe. Most dogs will not relieve themselves in the crate because that's where they sleep and that's where they rest. If your dog is relieving herself in the crate, you may be leaving her in there too long, or the crate might be too large for her. The critical key factor when you're attempting to house train your dog is to make sure that you take your dog out on a leash every time, putting it on cue as the dog is going to the bathroom. For example, Smith's cue is find a spot, and then praise him when he's done.
Good boy.
Do not let your dog out in the yard by himself to relieve himself. He will not know that that's appropriate behavior according to you. It is important that you take the time to teach your dog how to properly greet people at the door.
Hi, how are you? Hi.
When the doorbell rings and your dog runs to the door, barking and jumping at people, that's inappropriate behavior. I taught Abby to back up, sit quietly, so I could greet Leah. What you do not want to do is you don't want to allow your dog or the guests to greet each other when the dog is aroused. The dog will be greeted when the dog is calm. You can always ask the guests to turn their back and not reinforce the jumping behavior. How are you?
Good.
Good. This is the right way for your dog to behave when guests arrive at the door. Here's another way to use stay. When our guests arrive, I put Lance in a downstay so we can greet our friends.
Hey, how you guys doing?
How are you?
Hey, Rich.
Good. It's
See
so
there,
nice
bud?
to see you. Oh, it's so great to see you.
Hey, Lee.
Good to see you. How you doing, Marty? Excellent. Good boy.
Once we've said our hellos, I can release Lance, then give him permission to say hi.
There's a good boy. What a man. What a good dog.
Okay.
Notice how Leah has taught Smith to move away from the door, sit, and wait. She can open the door without concern of Smith bolting out. Once he makes eye contact with her, she releases him to go out and play.
Sam, go. Sam, get away. Sam, go. Sam, Sam, sit. Sam.
So obviously what you just saw there with Sam is probably a common scenario in many family households that have children. And it doesn't make it pleasurable for the child nor the dog. The dog is having fun, but the children aren't. So let's see if we can teach Sam how to be well-mannered when the children are playing checkers. Wait. Yes, sit. Yes, good boy. Sam, down. Very nice. Now we're going to teach Sam to stay. Stay. And what we're going to do is we're going to reward him for remaining in the position. If he maintains that position, he remains in the down, we're going to keep rewarding him. Good boy, Sam. Good boy. I'm going to stand up in between, so this way he can't get involved in your game. Now I'm going to step a little bit further away, remind him to stay. And now, Amanda, what I would like you to do is, now I want you to reward him for holding the stay so you know what to do when I'm not here, okay?
Okay.
Now you reward him for holding the stay and praise him.
Good boy.
So this way, your brothers can play checkers
Good boy.
and you can train the dog.
Okay.
So what we're going to do now is we'll say, you're going to take hold of his collar and you're going to tell him, okay, and then you can lead him out so he can go back into the kitchen with Mom.
Okay.
All right, so you hold on to his collar, Sam, and he's really holding this stay nicely, okay, because I think somebody was probably at the door at the time. Whoops, and Sam left. What I'd like to do now is talk about name recognition. The first thing I do when I get a puppy or a dog is teach him the meaning of his name. Dogs were not born knowing what their name means. What we do is we associate a particular sound to a particular behavior. The dog's name is a sound. For example, when I say Lance, my expectation is that he looks into my eyes. Without attention, you're not going to get any training. So how to teach the dog his name, you're going to associate it with a particular behavior. When I say Lance's name, my expectation is that he looks into my eyes. Attention is critical in training. Without attention, you're not going to have success. So how I start to teach this, anytime the dog looks into my eyes, I tell him yes, and I follow it with a treat. So, for example, he's looking at me right now, yes, and I give him a treat. Notice I have food in my hands. I don't want him to look at the food, I want him to look into my eyes. Yes, and I give him a treat. I wait, yes, and I give him a treat. What he did there was, he looked at the treat, he looked up at my eyes, and that's when I reinforced it. Now when I think I have a little bit of attention, I'm going to try to break attention, and as he starts to look back to me, now I will pair it up with his name. So I'm going to toss a treat on the floor to get rid of his attention. Lance, yes. He looked at me, I give a treat. I'll toss another treat on the floor. Lance, yes. I mark it with a yes, followed by a treat. And one more time, I'll toss a treat on the floor to avert his attention, say his name, Lance, yes, and I give a treat. So how did I get Lance to stand still? Now I'm going to show you. This is Gwynnie, Lance's daughter, a 13-week-old Belgian Tervuren puppy. This is the best time to start when they're young. Most puppies, when they see a brush come out, they cannot differentiate between a brush as a grooming tool and a toy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a few pieces of kibble in her bowl as I begin to brush. Notice she's standing still because she's distracted by the food. When she's done eating, I'll put a few more pieces of kibble in her food bowl, allow her to eat, and then continue to brush. What she's doing now is she's becoming accustomed to standing still while I'm brushing her. Eventually I can brush her for longer periods of time and not put so much kibble into the bowl. When she's done, I'll stop the brushing. I'll put a few more pieces of kibble in her bowl, allow her to eat, and then continue on with my brushing. Her focus now is on her food and not so much the brush. As you can see, she is laying still, and I'm brushing a little bit longer with no food. I'll put a few more pieces of kibble in. Okay, do a little bit more brushing, maybe on the top of the head, which is a little more sensitive. What I'm also going to do is teach her to accept handling of her paws. While she's eating, I'll teach her to balance on her other 3 legs by picking up each paw. So she's balancing on the other 3. Very good girl. And she's being rewarded at the same time because she's busy eating. If you recall, when I clipped Lance's nails, he balanced on the other 3 legs. And while she's eating her breakfast, I could spend a little time grooming her. And she's enjoying it. She's making a very nice association. And when she's done eating, she's ready to go out for a nice walk.
Very nice.
When you teach stay, make sure you always return to your dog to release her. Notice how Leah puts Abby into a down stay as she crosses the street to get the mail.
Girl. Good girl. Good girl.
Abby knows not to get up until Leah returns. If she were to release from a distance, Abby may have bolted into the street.
Good job. What a good girl.
This is Maisie. Maisie's a 4-year-old pit bull mix. Maisie was actually a stray. And when I'm going to work with Maisie, we're going to teach Maisie how to sit. The first thing that we do when we teach a dog to sit, we like to use a food as a lure to lure the dog into the position. So I have a treat in my hand. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to slowly bring it up above the dog's head. Yes, as a reminder, the second the dog puts her butt on the floor, and now I'm going to release her. Okay, she can get up now. One more time, I'll put a food treat right in front of her nose. I'm going to lift it up above her head. Yes, the second she plants her butt, and release her, okay, to get up. Okay, once she has done that several times, now the food treat is going to be gone. Notice I have nothing in my hand. Okay, I'll bring her up. Maisie, sit, yes, and I can give her a treat. Now, let's see if she'll do it politely for her food bowl. That's critical. So many dogs, what they do is they jump for their food bowl. So we'll put Maisie over here. Okay, Maisie. Maisie, sit. Yes. Oh, you're going to go down too. Well, aren't you special? Okay, you can eat now. And now I've given her permission to eat. So she was polite. I'm going to take the food away again. Thank you. I know it's yummy treats in here. We'll try that one more time. Maisie, sit. Down. Beautiful. Her reward is dinner. And she gets an opportunity to eat. Some people want their dogs up on furniture while others don't. When you establish the rules of your house, stick with them, be consistent, and make sure other family members are consistent as well. There are times when you might want your dog up on the sofa or your bed, and that's perfectly fine, provided that your dog listens when you tell your dog to get off. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to teach Abby how to jump up on the sofa on cue, and then teach her how to get off on cue as well. Otherwise, he's establishing the rules, not you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you how to teach your dog to get up onto furniture as well as get off. Okay, so right now I'm not going to invite Abby up here because Abby wants to get up here because she's barking at me. I'm going to wait for her to be quiet and have her do something else. Abby, down. Yes. Again, there I'm using the down command to help her relax on the floor right now because now I've chosen not to invite her up because she's requested to come up. Now I'll ask her to come up. I have a treat in my hand. I'm going to lure her up as I say up. Abby, whoops. Abby, up. Yes. Lie down. Good girl. Good. So if you want to snuggle with your dog up on the sofa, that's perfectly fine. Good girl. Maybe at this particular time I don't want her up here anymore because maybe guests are coming at the door and I'd like her to get off. I'm going to take a treat and I'm going to lure her off and associate that with the word. Abby, off. Yes. And I put the treat on the floor as she gets off. Good girl. We'll ask her to come up again. Abby, up. Yes. Good girl. And I give her the treat when she's up on the sofa. I can pet her. And now I'm going to ask her to get off. I'm going to do the same movement by taking a treat, bringing it down to the floor as I cue her to get off. Abby, off. Yes, good girl. Now remember we talked about stay. I don't want her up here now. Abby, down. Stay. Good girl. So if I tap up here, she's in a stay. Good girl. I'll reward her for not coming up. If I off, down, stay. Very good. Good girl. Good girl. So I have not asked her to come up here, and I've put her in her stay, and I expect her to remain down there until I release her. Very nice. Okay. Okay, you can get up. Good girl. Very nice. As we saw, Sam likes to steal things from counters. Sam is a 1.5-year-old golden retriever who was rescued from St. Hubert's Animal Welfare Center shelter. I'm going to teach Sam now the phrase, leave it. So he learns not to go to counters and he avoids food. If we're going to define leave it means avoid it, don't go near it, don't put it in your mouth, don't touch it. So what I do is I have a leave it object, a treat in my hand. I'm going to present, Sam, sit, the food. Here, Sam. Good boy. I'm going to present the food in my hand. I'm going to wait for him to avoid it. Yes. And I mark it with something else. I present, he avoids it. Yes. And I give him a treat from behind my back. I'll present again. He left it alone. Yes. Yes. Oops. I guess that was a rejected treat. Yes. There's the avoidance. If I start to get avoidance with it, what I will do is open my palm. Yes. And give him a treat. Open my palm. If he goes for it, I just close my palm. I want him to avoid it. Yes. Sam? Good boy. Yes. Doesn't matter what he does as long as he doesn't go for the food that I'm presenting. Yes. Notice now he's starting to get the general idea. Yes. Avoid this treat. Yes. Good boy. Leave it. Yes. Good boy. I'll come down to his level a little more. Leave it. Whoops. Leave it. Yes. He gets another treat. Leave it. Yes. Good boy. Leave it. Yes. Good boy. Leave it. Yes. Good boy. I'll pick it up again. I'll put it back down. Leave it. Yes. If I don't give him another reward, he's not going to have an understanding of why do I leave a visible reward. Leave it. Yes. So as you can see in one short session, Sam is starting to get the idea of what leave it means. Eventually what we'll start to do is use different objects so he understands that leave it means get your nose away from it. Let's see if Sam can now do this at the counter with the liver. Sam. Here, Sam. Leave it. Yes. Leave it. Yes, good boy. Leave it. Very good. And notice I'm giving him kibble, that's liver. Let's take a step away. See if he'll leave it alone. Sam. Leave it. Yes, good boy, Sam. We'll remind him that it's here. Leave it. Yes. Very good, Sam. Good boy. Excellent job. Good boy. Okay. So he's getting the general idea in one quick little session. So if we start to generalize that to different things, Sam will soon understand leave it means get your nose away from it. This is Smith, 1.5-year-old miniature Aussie, who I'm going to teach how to walk nicely on leash. What we're going to do when I first start teaching a dog to walk nicely on leash is I reward the dog for any free attention that the dog gives me. As you can see, he's paying beautiful attention, so I'm going to reinforce that by giving him a treat. Now I'm going to begin to walk since he's not pulling on leash. My phrase that I use is, let's go. When I say let's go, I'll begin to walk up the hill. As long as he's walking nicely, I'm going to reinforce him with a treat. Anytime he begins to pull, I'm going to stop my walking so I don't reinforce the pulling. Therefore, he's going to understand that if he pulls, the walk ends. When he stops pulling, he regains attention. I'm going to reward him again for walking nicely. Are you ready? Let's go. Good. He's walking nicely. There's your pull. I wait until he refocuses. Yes, good boy. And I reward when he's walking nicely. There, he's about to pull. I stop. Yes, good boy. And I begin my walk. There's the pull. I'm going to wait for him to regain attention. Yes, good boy. And begin to walk. This simple technique can be the difference between a comfortable walk with your dog versus a constant battle at the end of the leash. So if you have the opposite problem where the dog is not pulling forward, but the dog puts the brakes on and doesn't want to walk forward any longer, what you don't want to do is you don't want to go back to the dog to reinforce that behavior. Instead, stand your ground where you are, wait for the dog to come up to you, and as soon as he does, reward him for proceeding forward, and then you can continue on with your walk. So the key is teaching your dog to walk nicely on a leash so you both get some exercise. The beginning steps of teaching a good recall, which is also come, is to get the dog to learn that when you say come, you come running with quick speed. How to initiate that is for the owner to run away, which elicits chase. So what I'm going to have Adrienne do is she's going to get her dog revved up. She's going to get Autumn revved up. She's going to run away. When she gets to a certain spot, she'll call her dog to come. What I'm going to do then is I'm going to let her go. Adrienne will praise her throughout. When Autumn gets to her, she's going to sit, she'll reward her, and then release her. Are you ready?
Ready.
Notice, Adrienne gets excited, runs away, and calls her to come. I release her. Adrienne tells Autumn to sit and rewards her with petting.
Good girl. Very good girl. Okay.
The key factor to remember, dogs were not born understanding what come means. So you want to make sure that each and every time you call your dog to come, you're setting it up for success. If you're not sure if the dog's going to come or not, I'd rather have you not call the dog to come. Instead, use another word, such as here, use the dog's name, clap. You can even offer a treat to the dog if you like. But remember, these are the beginning steps to come, and with time, your dog's going to become reliable with his recall if you work on it and you practice. This is Abby, a 3-year-old Shetland sheepdog. And if you recall how nice Lance was standing for grooming, what we're going to do now is we're going to teach Abby to stand still or lie down, whichever her preference is, for brushing and handling. As you can see, I'm having her nibble on tiny little pieces of treat. As I'm doing this, I'm going to gently just take the brush as she's nibbling, so she makes a positive association with the brushing. Okay. And lovely. We'll stop for a second, and what I want her to do is I want her to enjoy the brushing. So as she comes around, she's going to look for another treat. I'll hold her up, and it's at nose level. I take the brush, so she's nibbling on the brush, on the treat. She's nibbling on the treat as I'm brushing her. So I'm teaching her at the same time to enjoy brushing as well as standing still. Eventually, I'll take the treat away. Now, I can also do this to pick up paws, so she learns to balance. So I can check her paw, give her a little treat. I can check her rear paw and give her a little treat. We'll take it away again. Good girl, Abby, good girl. Again, touching ears. Lots of handling associated with positive things. So she makes a good association with this. And if you notice, I can handle her all over because she's busy nibbling at the treat. Okay? Eventually, I'll take the treat away. Good girl. I'll take the brush. I'll brush for a little bit, and then I reward afterwards. Now I'll brush again, a little bit more, and I reward afterwards. So what she has learned is if I stand still and calm, I get a reward for this particular behavior. Part of pet ownership is making sure that your dog is healthy. Grooming is an important part of that. Two key tools that you're going to need when you're grooming your dog, first, is a brush. This particular brush is for long-coated dogs, as Lance is. There are short-coated dogs that require a different type of brush. Also, a nail clipper. Dogs need their nails clipped probably once a week is good. Again, there are different types of nail clippers. Use the one that you feel most comfortable with. If you're not sure how to use it, my recommendation is to go to your veterinarian and have him assist you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how easy it is to get your dog to relax and stand still when you're attempting to groom the dog. That is critical. So many dogs, especially when they're young, start mouthing the brush. They are fidgety. People are running around the house trying to attempt to brush the dog. Teach him to stand still while you're grooming him, and life will be easier. I'm going to start off first by getting Lance up. Okay, bud. Good boy. Stand. Okay. Good boy. As you can see, Lance's coat is long. Brushing is absolutely necessary. I brush Lance on a daily basis to avoid any type of shedding and to keep his coat nice and shiny, and it also stimulates the skin. And as you can see, as I'm brushing him, it makes it a lot easier for me as a pet owner with a dog who is standing completely still as I'm brushing him, rather than me chasing him around the kitchen. Also, what I would like to do is clip his nails. They can balance on all three. And what I will do is I will simply clip the dog's nails, and I can put the other one down. And notice he's standing completely still. I will snip, 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 and put the pad down as he balances on all three. Again, he's nice and still. It makes it easy for me. I can get him groomed in a matter of 30 seconds, 1, 2, 3, and we're done, ready to have some fun and go out and play. Another reason for the dog to stand still is so you can easily clean his feet before entering the house. Notice Lance stands calmly while I wipe his paws. Good boy. Okay, go ahead.
Hi, my name's Harold Fritz. I'm a veterinarian in Long Valley, New Jersey. I graduated from Michigan State University in 1971, and I've been involved in small animal veterinary medicine since then. I have been at Long Valley Veterinary Clinic since 1988 when we formed the practice here, and recently I've had the very, very good fortune of having been associated with St. Hubert's, Geralda in Madison, and they have been kind enough to offer puppy training and adolescent training classes.
Have to start getting her. I get her in the water, she comes out. I get her in the water, she comes out. Now she doesn't even want to go near
If
it.
you go in with her,
Okay.
what I did, Lance did not swim at all. He was petrified walking through puddles. He now swims.
Initially, having a puppy, a young puppy, is kind of like having a young baby. You take your young baby to a pediatrician periodically for examinations and vaccinations. Likewise, you should be doing the same for the puppy. A dog, or a cat for that matter, certainly should have an annual physical examination. You must know if the pet has had any illnesses, either at the pet store or with the breeder. That is of immense help to your veterinarian. I'd like to spend a few moments talking to you about parasites, specifically internal parasites of dogs. They're very important because they can be, some of these parasites can be transmitted to humans, and they can potentially have devastating effects if they are transmitted to humans. The number one age group for humans being infected with intestinal parasites are young children between the ages of 6 months and 5 years of age. Multiple wormings at staged intervals, at 2 to 3 week intervals, until the puppy is 10 to 12 weeks of age will generally control these parasites. Thereafter, worming, which can be accomplished very easily by some of the more common heartworm preventatives, will also at the same time not only control heartworms, but will also control roundworms and hookworms. A full-grown dog ought to be examined at least once a year. There are changing protocols for vaccinations. After the first year of life, it is now being recommended that a dog receive a canine distemper parvo vaccine once every 3 years. This is kind of new thinking. It has been proven recently that over-vaccination is as harmful as under-vaccination. We can create other diseases directed at the patient's immune system if we give too many vaccinations. Many, many advances have been made in canine nutrition in the last 15 or 20 years. Puppies are like very young children. They're very active, they're growing, so therefore they have a higher caloric need. And although they continue to grow in height till maybe 12 or 15 months, you can oftentimes influence puppies negatively by giving them too many calories and having them grow too fast. If a puppy has not finished a meal, a regularly scheduled meal within 15 or 20 minutes, it is best to pick that food up and not offer them any food or snacks until the next scheduled feeding. By the time you get your puppy from the breeder or the pet shop, we ought to be feeding roughly, assuming that you get the puppy at 7 weeks of age or thereabouts, a 3 meal per day plan is usually sufficient to supply the nutrients and calories that that puppy will need for adequate growth. Rule of thumb is between 18 and 20 weeks of age, we'll take the puppy down to 2 meals a day. If the puppy should get lazy with one of the meals before, then simply eliminate the middle meal of the day. At 6 months of age, you can either stay with 2 meals a day or you can go to a single meal a day. You should establish an annual physical exam with your veterinarian and respond to any reminders that he or she may send to you for various examinations, blood testing, or vaccination protocols that veterinary institution has established. In the exam room, we spend 20 minutes to half an hour per patient.